So understanding the communication keys is really important. If we accept that each person has a preferred style of communication, then you can kind of develop a focus for different meetings and structure of meetings. Now, this is sort of a combination of the Hugh Massey DNA and the Myers-Briggs model, okay, what we have presented for you here in this slide. If your client's primary style is intuition, they're going to be looking at goal setting, and they're going to be looking at broad goals and opportunities and alternatives. And if the structure of the meeting is focused on bottom line results, yeah, that's part of it, but you're also going to have to account for that brainstorming, okay? If the client is an intuitor. If it's what the DNA people call a lifestyle desire, so they need to visualize how they will meet their lifestyle needs, you can be more fun and energetic and interactive. You can offer graphics. You can show them because they are sensors and they have to see it, right? They have to see it in order to believe it. The stability need are the people who are focused on their feelings. The focus of the meeting is to enable the client to feel safe and protected. So those meetings might be more calm, supportive, and relaxed, even to the place of where you would have the meeting, what type of office you have, and what sort of things you offer the person. You might offer them a beverage, might offer them some time to talk about their feelings in the meeting, not just sit down, get down to work, get out. 10-minute meeting is probably not going to work. The people who we would classify as thinkers, the DNA people call information need, that's their primary style. They need facts, they need details, they need written support, and they really need a very structured meeting, okay? They're not going to want the energetic, interactive. They're not going to care about the calm, supportive, relaxed meetings. They are in and out people. We want to get in, we want to get out, we want our facts, we want them now. We want to see the details in writing. We don't want to hear about a pie in the sky. We don't necessarily want to brainstorm. So this is just a way that you can take that Myers-Briggs information and use it to plan the focus of your meeting and the structure of your meeting with your clients. Now, you might not know your client's style from a test. You're not necessarily going to sit down and have your client take the test. By the way, there is a test. A Myers-Briggs test is available, and Cal Lutheran offers it. Right now, they're doing a paper pencil version of it. In the future, they might become more likely to offer an online version. But if you call the Career Services Office, which will give you a link for that in this week's agenda, you can call them and they can send you a PDF, or they can send you an actual paper pencil copy. You can take the test, they'll score it and get it back to you. So you can get your own score for the Myers-Briggs. Myers-Briggs also has a website that isn't free. The Cal Lutheran version is free. And necessarily, you don't really need to go out of the university to take it at this point in time. If you ever develop a big practice and you start hiring people and you want to actually implement it within your office so that each person in your staff knows what their style is, and you certainly can contact Myers-Briggs. But right now, for the personal needs of this class and to understand yourself better, you can access that through the Cal Lutheran Career Services Department. You're not necessarily going to do that with your client. You're not going to necessarily have your client take the test. But once you know your own style, and once you think about people that you know, you can pretty easily start to see this. This is not something that's hidden. People can't really hide their styles. They can't hide how they communicate. What this does is it gives you the language to break down a discussion and a thoughtful planning process for how to deal with people that have different communication styles. In a way, it's a shortcut. It's not 100% precise. When you know your own style, you're going to see how it mixes and matches, and how you might have parts of yourself that are in conflict, right? You might be a sensor intuitor, which is somebody who's right in the middle. And that means that you could have conflict in and of yourself, how you like to communicate. A lot of times people are high in sensing, they're high in thinking, they're high in judging, and those tend to cluster together. People can be high in intuitors and high in feelers. What's really interesting is how these are sprinkled throughout the population, where the most common communication clusters are versus the ones that are more uncommon. And Myers-Briggs has done a lot of research on that. This has been handled very, very well in terms of the body of research and the number of people that have gone through this sort of program since the 1940s. So they have a big body of information to work with. Basically, this helps you to look at the client personality. You just want to think about your client before you meet with them. Are they somebody who's compliant or somebody who's dominant? Are they somebody who's introverted or somebody who's extroverted? Are they detached or are they compassionate? Unstructured, structured, cautious or adventurous, concrete or abstract? Now, if you don't know, because you've never met the person before, there's several things you can do. You can wait till after you've met them and sort of make little notes for yourself on these terms, and just to help you to remember. You can also ask the client themselves if they consider themselves to be compliant or dominant, if they consider themselves to be introverted or extroverted. Most people know. And in talking about themselves, if they just describe themselves to you, if you just say to the client, tell me a little bit about yourself, what do you like as a person? How are you and your family? You're going to get a lot of these words coming into the conversation. Somebody might describe themselves as a really strong, outgoing personality. And at that point, you say to yourself, okay, that's a dominant extrovert. I got it. You're going to have people whose hobby in life is rescuing animals. They're going to be really high on the compassionate scale. If your client has 15 cats, they're probably compassionate. Unstructured and structured, you're going to know a lot about that right away by looking at the financial documents that they present to you. Are they on little tiny pieces of paper in a box? Do they have a ledger? Do they have an Excel spreadsheet? What are they bringing to you? That's going to tell you how structured or unstructured they are. And are they cautious or adventurous? Just listen about their life and you're going to know the answer to that very, very soon. Have they traveled a lot? Do they stay close to home? Have they lived in other countries? Do they like to take active vacations? A lot of these things are just common sense. And the reason that it's important for you to understand your client personality is because by understanding them, you can more effectively communicate with them. If you are completely different from your client, you're going to have a little bit of work to do. Again, it doesn't mean that you're going to change. You're still going to be you. But you might need to use some terms and some words that are comforting to your client, and that will allow your client to engage with you. When your client engages with you, you're going to learn more about them. When you learn more about them, you're going to be able to come up with a better system and a better plan for them. So it is worth a little bit of time on your part and a little bit of extra effort. Often people say they don't understand why they don't get along with a particular person. They just don't click, right? Or you meet somebody and they just are so off-putting to you, you don't really know how to come in on their frequency. But if you analyze the reasons that you have this issue with that person, you're probably going to find some area of commonality that you can build on, or some way that you can phrase your suggestions to them in a way that they can understand. So adapting your message is the key. How you respond to the different style that your client has is up to you. There is no one magic way, right? You can be accommodating or directing. If you're accommodating, it means you're going to move a little bit out of your comfort zone maybe. Maybe you're going to slow down a little bit if you're with somebody who's a high feeler and you're not going to charge over them with, a list of 10 things they're going to change in the next week. Depending on if you're with an introvert, Maybe you're normally an extrovert and you're very engaging, and your style might be too powerful for them in the beginning to make them feel comfortable. So maybe you need to ramp down a little bit in your first meeting and just let them have time to know you and time to become comfortable with you. In time, of course, you can ramp right back up to your normal, engaging, extroverted self, but you will have given that client the time to become comfortable with you rather than just like coming at them like a ton of bricks right out the gate, which might work fantastically with another extrovert. Another extrovert will say, what a great guy or what a great gal that person is. We really hit it off. We understood each other. I'm sure you've all met people who, when you met, you felt like you were meeting a twin or a long lost friend, and you could just finish each other's sentences, and you knew exactly what the other person was going to say, and you agreed with everything they said. And that feels so wonderful when we meet people like that. But our clients aren't always going to come in that way. And you need to know that it's not a problem if somebody has a different communication style. It doesn't mean they shouldn't be your client. It just means you have to adapt a little bit in the beginning. You have to be maybe a little bit more objective if you have a high-level thinker, or if it's a high-level feeler, try for a little more of a harmonious approach rather than my way or the highway. Give a little bit of room for the feelings in those initial discussions. Again, the spontaneity-ness of your discussion. If you have somebody that's going to be ranked highly as a perceiver, you need to allow for a little spontaneity. Don't have your meeting mapped out to the minute so that you know that at 10:45 you should be at this point. There maybe needs to be a little bit of wiggle room. And again, also with the methodical people, maybe if you're not as methodical, you need to work on that a little bit and just try to give them an agenda and try to keep to it. The other key is to know your own authentic response, okay? The more you understand about yourself and your communication style and personality, I do recommend that you take the Myers-Briggs if you are interested. It's obviously an option, but if you do know more about yourself, it helps you to be a more effective communicator. So the key is to be authentic and yet slightly adapt. You alter some part of your message. If you try to come in on their channel, what it would just mean is cutting back on your wordiness if you are with a thinking client, or leave out the list if you're dealing with a more intuitive client. Just slightly alter your methods, and you're going to come in on their radio channel. That's why we have a little radio picture here, because everybody has a slightly different channel, and you're just tuning yourself. You're doing fine tuning. You're not changing yourself. You're not being not authentic. The best reason to not be inauthentic is because that is a turnoff. People know when you're being phony. People know when you're not being your real self. So we're not telling you, oh, find out what your clients like and do just like them. No, you still want to be yourself, but you want to adapt your style slightly so that the client is comfortable. And the comfort of your client is going to make for a better time spent together, and hopefully a better plan for them. Because the more you listen and the more you learn, that's going to help you to develop a better plan for your client. Watch the client feedback to know how well they've received your message. You'll know if you're bombarding them, because a lot of times they'll tell you. They'll say, wow, that's just too much for me to handle. So that's a big clue right there, okay? You may have to dial back what you present in an hour. Maybe it is bombarding to somebody who's never thought about it before, but if their style is more feeling and more intuitive and more perceiving, if they're more of that type of a person, you also need to allow room for them to have their brainstorming and their feelings and their perceptions acknowledged in the meeting. So to maximize your efforts, know yourself, know your own communication style, know your client. You don't have to have their Myers-Briggs type score to know how you're alike or how you're different. And think before you speak. Don't use the same approach for each client. It's not a cookie cutter situation where people come into your office one after the other and you just give them all the same spiel. You give them everything the same. You have to adapt a little bit. Everybody has a different way of communicating, and you need to know what's going to work with each person. It's part of something that a lot of people just know intuitively, especially intuitors know this. Maybe they've never studied it. Maybe they've never sat in a course and thought about communication styles. Maybe it's not anything they've ever done any reading on. They just know it, right? And a good salesperson often just knows. They know how to talk to people. They know how to get the best out of people. Good managers sometimes also just know this. But a lot of people never think about it, and they've even become very successful with their one stripe. They've maximized themselves, and they sort of feel that this is how they are, and there's really no other way to be. But just know there's lots of other ways to be, and they're all valid. Everybody has the right to be taken seriously for their own communication style. We don't want anybody to feel less than. There is no right answer. There is no goal. It's not like everybody's goal is to become a sensor thinker, because if we had a whole world full of sensor thinkers, we'd get so much more done. That's really not the case. We want to allow the full spectrum of potential communication styles to develop, because that's what makes life interesting, and that's what gets things moved along. We want the dreamers, because the dreamers are dreaming of the next thing while the sensors are doing what needs to be done today. So in summary, in this lesson, I hope that you learned about communication styles, personality types, and how to fine-tune your authentic message. And there's a lot more to learn about this. Again, if you're interested, we've got lots of articles for you. You can communicate with the Career Services Department at California Lutheran University, and you'll learn a lot more about this even in this course. So I'm glad we were able to spend this time together, and we will pick up the discussion at a later date.